next on The Michael Dukes Show.
Up next, we're going to be talking with Chris Howard from the Australia Shooters Union. He's going to be Skyping in live from down under. We're going to be talking with him about the brand new Australian gun ban that they're talking about down there. I mean, once was not enough. Now they're going for twice. Chris Howard up next on The Michael Dukes Show and Firearms Friday right here on AM700KBYR.
Hey, this is Michael Dukes. Thanks for listening to our podcast here on KBYR.com. Make sure to also check out our Facebook, Facebook.com/AM700KBYR as well. Now, back to more of the podcast.
I've heard this song before somewhere, it seems like. That's right, Down Under. Now, I've never been there, but it is one of my favorites. Chris Howard joins us, of course, live from Down Under. That's why we played the old Waltz of Matilda, because he is with the Australia Shooters Union, which is one of the preeminent gun rights organizations in Australia, with what's left of Australian gun owners, because, as you recall, in the 90s, they had the massive Australian, the gun buyback that Hillary has so lovingly talked about. That, what she fails to mention, of course, is that it wasn't really a buyback. It was a confiscation, because if you didn't, they gave you money if you turned the gun in, but if you didn't turn the gun in, they gave you shackles, and that's what that was all about. Now they're talking about doing something more. Chris Howard comes on to talk with us about it this morning. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Michael. How are you?
I cannot complain, my friend. At least I'm not down under worried about all my guns getting, sucked out of my gun cabinet. So tell us a little bit about what's happening down there right now.
Well, at the moment, they're reviewing the National Firearms Agreement, and the secret, shadowy group that does not share their information with anybody, they're all sitting around meeting and planning to take more of our guns. Now, we're in possession of a document that has been floating around since 2005. It was leaked, and we saw what they wanted to take back in 2005. Now, 11 years later, they're trying to take even more, and you won't believe how stupid some of these things that they want to take from us are. A bolt-action rifle. It's got a detachable magazine. Yeah, a bolt-action rifle. If it's got a detachable magazine, we don't want you to have it. If it's got a barrel shroud, we don't want you to have it. If it has got a collapsible buttstock or an adjustable buttstock, like a Magpul style, something like your Ruger precision rifles, things like that, right. Yeah, no, sorry. They look like machine guns, so we don't want you to have it.
What's the justification, Chris, for this latest round of takings? I could understand, if you guys had if there'd been another incident or another mass shooting or something else going on. But what's the steam behind these politicians making this secondary grab right now?
Well, a lot of a push comes from a group called Gun Control Australia, who are highly influential in the years of a former Prime Minister John Howard, who was instrumental in the 96 gun buyback. Now, he puts a lot of pressure on the Liberal Party, and unfortunately they listen, and all of these police ministers and high-ranking police officers are basically told to, hey, we're going to review this, put in your wish list, tell us what we don't want the people to have, and that's it. The only justification that we think that they're going to use is an increased threat of terrorism.
Well, and, you guys have already had the majority of your gun rights stripped. When they had the buyback in the 90s, what literally was the threshold then? It basically no semi-automatics, was it pump actions or lever actions? I've forgotten, one of the two.
Okay, they took away our pump action shotguns, right, and semi-automatic shotguns, and any type of semi-automatic rifle, be it rimfire or centerfire. So even like a 5-shot, Browning a 5-shot Browning semi-automatic rifle, like a proper hunting rifle, no, sorry, right, You're not allowed to have that even anymore. So, right. So we're trying to hang on to what we've got left. Obviously we're trying to fight back and take back some of what we lost, but right, they keep on chipping away, and they're just slowly slicing more and more pieces off the salami until there's none left.
Now, what is the Australian attitude towards? Because we've often talked here on the show about, America, and really probably one of the most American of ideals or characteristics is this idea of civil disobedience. I mean, we had it in in Newtown. Connecticut. We had an assault weapons ban there. There was a registration of ARs and everything else. And turns out that only about 15 or 20% were actually registered, and they were going around saying, well, we think there's probably another 250,000 where people have just said no. Do Australian gun owners or folks who are out there, maybe in the bush or in the more rural areas, are they basically just looking at this and shaking their head and hiding the guns under the beds, or what's happening?
Well, we estimate in 1996 that they only got around about 25 to 30% of all the semi-automatic and pump-action type firearms that they made illegal. Most weren't registered, so nobody knew they had them. So they're still out there. People aren't doing the wrong thing with them either, as you know. Right. There's been no more mass shootings. So right. The spirit of civil disobedience is pretty well alive and well in Australia. The problem we've got now is all of the rifles that people have got, they're all registered. And the ones that they're going to try and crack down on, they're all registered to owners right now. They know exactly where they are, and the police, if you refuse to turn them in, they're going to come around and try and put you in jail. And right. Look, I don't know what they will do if, 100,000, 200,000, 300,000 gun owners just say, no, you're not taking my guns. What, are they going to put us all in jail?
Right. Well, and that's part of the problem that, for example, in the New York and the Connecticut scenario is that all of a sudden the politicians realized that they'd made a law that people were refusing to abide by, and they felt a little emasculated because they're like, well, wait, we're supposed to make the law, you're supposed to follow it. And then they started talking to law enforcement, and law enforcement basically told them, are you kidding? We're not going to 300,000 homeowners to look for guns. That's a good way to get shot. We're not going to do that. That makes no sense. And so all of a sudden politicians realized they couldn't make all these laws. And it sounds like you've got the same kind of situation that we have here. We were just talking about people totally not understanding anything about guns. The whole barrel shroud thing just cracks me up. That's the Carolyn McCarthy. Hey, what's a barrel shroud, Representative McCarthy? Oh, I don't know. It's the shoulder thing that goes up, right? Yes, exactly. The barrel shroud is the shoulder thing that goes. You guys are writing the laws, and you don't even understand what you're writing laws about.
Well, in this document that we were actually able to get a hold of, they talked about belt-fed shotguns. Have you ever seen a belt-fed shotgun, Michael, ever in your entire life?
Well, I have actually seen recently, there was a guy on YouTube that had a belt-fed shotgun, but it was a homebrew, blah, 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 not a production belt-fed. So I have to admit that I have seen one. But, never in production. Never has I gone down to get my latest Browning Belgian belt-fed shotgun. Sorry.
And we laugh when we see some... Well, we shouldn't laugh because it's serious. And they seriously want to take more and more. But when you read the proposals and their descriptions of what they want to take, it's obvious that they do not know a single thing about firearms. But yet these laws are supposedly written by ballistics experts. They're the people that they're consulting to help them with these laws. But I'm sorry, I think I know more than those ballistics experts. They obviously don't know anything.
Right. Well, because I think a lot of times the experts are really nothing more than lobbyists in sheep's clothing. They're there with an agenda themselves to try and get done what they've had. Now, and again, for folks out there that just don't know, we're specifically talking about mostly rifles because for the most part in Australia, handguns are completely outlawed, right?
Yeah, it's very, very tightly controlled handguns, but the more and more people that we can get into handgun shooting at their local pistol club, the more of us there are, so the harder it is for them to try and take even more. Because we've even had a handgun buyback. Oh, yeah, we had a handgun buyback in 2002. If the barrel was under 5 inches in length for a semi-auto, sorry, you can't have that. If it was above 38 caliber, sorry, you can't have that either. And no more than 10 rounds in a magazine. We're allowed to have revolvers with a barrel of 4 inches or longer, but anything shorter than that, forget about it. So that, they even brought back handguns from this highly restricted, licensed category. So,
And when you
as
say,
I said, the salami, they're just cutting more and more bits off.
Right. And when you say they had a buyback on this restricted category, we're talking about people who have paid hundreds of dollars and gone through enormous hoops to get the handgun under your draconian licensing scheme. And now it's not just a buyback, hey, we'd really like to buy your gun, give us some money. It is, again, give us the gun, we'll give you some money. If you don't give us the gun, we're going to send the police around.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Because they're all registered. They're all registered, and the police know exactly where they are. Now, I know why they did what they did. It's because they wanted to get a certain number of handguns. They didn't actually care how they got them. So they said, okay, well, if it's got a barrel under this length, okay, how many will that take out of circulation? Or, no, not quite enough. What about if we go a caliber restriction as well? Oh, yeah, that gets us to the number of handguns we want taken off the street. And that's the way they think.
Right.
It's got nothing to do with common sense. You know, you won't find common sense in firearms legislation. That's one thing that I was taught many years ago, and it still rings true today.
Absolutely. Now, when it comes down to I just don't even know. I just don't even know what to say to some of the stupidity that we're seeing here. When it comes down to it, what is the next step for you guys there in Australia as you're facing this group, this shadowy group that's working on your version of the NFA?
It is pressure, pressure, pressure. We're motivating our members. Our members are so mad. And even people that aren't members that are still getting our information are extremely mad. And submissions to all of these different firearms policy working groups and the like, you know, we're really hammering them, and they don't like it. They really don't like it. And when they see exactly that, well, there's 2 million people in Australia that own guns and they're all going to get really pissed at us, well, you know, hopefully we can sort of turn them off, at least put them off again for another 10 years or so. But
right.
Unfortunately, if they're successful, I think what's going to happen is that people are just going to line up and hand them over just like they did last time. And the reason for that, Michael, is I think that Australians really don't have they don't understand the true meaning of freedom, because we never actually had to fight a war of independence. So
right.
we've never actually had to beat off so many different invaders, and we don't know what freedom truly is, unlike Americans. You guys really know the true spirit of it. And, there are people here that do understand, but generally as a population, Australians, they're pretty naive when it comes to firearms rights. The general person walking down the street, they wouldn't have a clue what it's all about. They don't understand what freedom means and what the price that has to be paid to maintain it.
Right. Well, and that's something that, for America was really, I've said it so many times, was built into their DNA, because it was something that, our country grew up as the firearm was being developed and industrialized to the point of mass production. It was something that just went hand in glove with, what America was growing into become. So we really have had we've really had a love affair with it, simply because it was part of our culture and part of our DNA from the very beginning. And for your folks, it wasn't quite that intertwined. But what kills me, of course, is that this concept and the argument that you always hear from these guys is we're trying to protect people. We're trying to eliminate crime. We're trying to do this. And then I saw an article the other day that basically said that in a lot of the states in Australia, and especially a lot of the big cities like Brisbane and Sydney and some of these other, that the police departments there are now facing they're finding guns on the street, but they're finding guns that are now full auto guns because, hey, they'll just start importing them, or they'll start making fully automatic, guns in machine shops and things like. They're just criminals don't care.
Yeah, it's exactly right. We had an instance where in Sydney, 200 Glocks came through the international post. And
wow.
They were all sold and circulated amongst all the criminals in Sydney. And I think they retrieved around about 4 or 5 of them. And the serial numbers actually matched up with Glocks that had been made 3 months prior. So,
wow.
So you're never going to stop guns coming in Australia's borders. We've got huge, wide open borders. About 5% of our shipping containers only get scanned. So there's no way they're going to actually pick up anything, you know. I mean, if they're not stopping drugs at the border, they're definitely not stopping guns.
Chris Howard is with the Australia Shooters Union. Chris, we're out of time. Folks want to find out more, we'll go send them to your website. Thanks so much, Chris Howard, for coming on and staying up late to talk with us this morning. We appreciate it. Thank you, Michael. Always a pleasure. Always good to talk to you. Back with more Firearms Friday right after this.
Just Broadcasting